Hey YouTube, this is the most passionate show on the internet about taxes. And today we're going to answer the question, are audits random? So that you can stress less about your tax issues and sleep better at night. So stick around and we'll have your answer in about 2 minutes, probably under 2 minutes. My name is Jared and this is my YouTube show about taxes, debt, personal finance, and sometimes just about life. I answer people's questions about tax issues and occasionally give away free stuff. We also occasionally bring on other people for interviews that are in the industry. I'm a tax advisor, and I kind of stumbled into helping people navigate kind of the collection side of the IRS. So once people are kind of in trouble and the amount of taxes known, how to get them out of trouble. And the reason that happened was I had some friends and family who kind of through no fault of their own ended up on the wrong side of the IRS. It ended up being someone else's mistake, quite frankly, but it took them a long time to kind of figure it all out. And it caused a lot of stress and a lot of heartache for some of them. And that made me really realize kind of how important having a specialist was. I had done some of this work before, but after that, it really kind of cemented the need for it, especially where I am. There aren't a whole lot of people up here that do just this where I am. I'm located in Maine. So that's what I do. Now, I make this show to help people get good information because there's a lot of bad information out of the internet. And also, not everybody can afford professional services. And also, sometimes it doesn't make sense to hire someone. I know I do a lot of pro bono work, but at the same time, there's not enough time in the day to handle all the issues. So this is one way that I'm trying to kind of help people in general with this type of stuff. Now, today we're going to answer the question, are audits random? And the answer to that, as I say a lot on this show, is yes and no. So there are some audits that are truly random. They just happen. You get picked up, and it's not because you have a high diff score, which is the fact that something about your return was strange compared to kind of other people in your bracket. That's sometimes why that happens. Then also, sometimes you get picked up by if income reporting documents got sent into the government that you didn't put on your return. Sometimes an audit will get triggered by that. Sometimes, you make enough money that the IRS is already paying attention to you or paying attention to people in your bracket. So then all those cases is not really random. Some cases they are random. And then there's also something called an NRP audit, which is the National Research Project Audit. And that's when the IRS basically makes you prove everything down to your kids' birth certificates, your marriage certificates, school records. You basically have to prove everything. And the idea behind why they do this is they want to get some general data about people. And those are for research purposes, and I don't believe they actually release the specific information about their choosing criteria, but they are looking for kind of bands of people, so I'm sure they're not truly random, but you might be random within a group. And those are one of those ones that can sometimes smack people out of nowhere, and they wonder if they did something wrong, but those are just the IRS saying that we're going to audit you. We may not even think you did anything wrong, but we have the right to audit you at any point that we like, and now we're going to audit you and make sure that we go over everything with a fine-tooth comb. A lot of people don't realize that the way the tax code is written, that the IRS has an absolute right to audit you any year and every year in whatever detail they'd really like. It's your job as the taxpayer to prove your deductions at any point in time, and it's their job to prove your income if they disagree. So you self-report income, and most of the time they take it. If they want to challenge that income, they have the burden of proof to prove it. But if you want to take deductions against that income, you have to prove those. So that's kind of how it balances out in a way. One side has to prove one thing, one side has to prove the other. But this can still be really difficult because a lot of people, especially if they're not rich, don't necessarily they might not have a bookkeeper. They might not have somebody who's watching this. They kind of just do their taxes every year based on the reporting documents they have. And they look back through their checkbook to see which donations they've made or something like that. But those NRP audits in particular, while they're random, can be really burdensome for people and take a long time. Now, so that answers today's question, which is, are audits random? Which is yes and no. Sometimes they are truly random, and sometimes they aren't. Sometimes they're because something triggered in the IRS's system. Either somebody sent in a document that said you had this money and you made this money and you didn't put it on there, or maybe you had way more expenses than is normally is normal for your industry if you're self-employed. There's lots of things that can pick this up, but those are the two those are the main ways that people get an audit: randomness, income reporting documents, and something about their return just doesn't match the math that the IRS has in their computer for who they think that taxpayer is and what they think they do and how they earn money. So if you found this helpful, it's put your mind at ease at all, it's answered your question. You can subscribe below. If you've got a question, you can also answer it below. And, we'll probably get to that in 2 or 3 days. It's my goal, if I see a good question down there, or even just a funny question, I'll try to pump one of these videos out as quick as possible. And if you want, I'll give you a shout out. That'd be fun. But if you don't want a shout out, just let me know and I won't mention you. I'll just answer the question. And other than that, I guess the question for the comments that I'd really like to see a discussion about is, how do you feel about the fact that some audits are random? Like, should the IRS be just picking people at random and, subjecting them to that level of scrutiny? Should they have to have a reason or, expect that, have an expectation that you've done something wrong? And then what about these NRP audits where they just pick someone and go over their entire life with a fine-tooth comb? I mean, if someone's not able to represent themselves, that's a really big burden on a random individual taxpayer just for the sake of collecting data. And yeah, they have the right to by the law, but is it fair that someone has to shell out money to defend 1 year of their return at that level if they don't know how to handle that? Does that seem fair? And I have my thoughts on it. I'm sure other people have other thoughts on it. I'm sure lots of tax advisors have thoughts on it, but also curious what you guys think. Does that seem fair to you? Okay, that's all. And next week we'll be answering another question. Let me see if I've got the next question that we're going to be answering here. I think we've got it right here. Yep. I'm going to flash me a little bit with that light. The next question we'll be answering next week. Okay, this is one that I've seen a lot of people ask before, which is, what do I do if my spouse owes taxes from before we were married? So lots of people get married and then they find out people have tax debt, or they knew they did, but they didn't know how to deal with it. And then they end up getting their refund garnished to pay their spouse's back taxes. Well, that's going to giving you a hint of what I'm going to tell you, actually. But we're going to talk a little bit about that issue. So if you or your spouse owes taxes, find out a little bit about, from a prior marriage or from when you were single, tune in next week and we'll answer that question and we'll give you a few practical, actionable tips. That's all, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your day.